Hello, Michaela, and welcome to the Wild Wonder podcast.
Thank you, Kristen. Hello.
Hi, you're joining us from the Czech Republic, right?
Yes,
That's
yes, I'm Czech
amazing.
Republic. Yeah.
I've never been. And you help women with emotional eating or how to relearn how to eat. Can you tell us a little bit about your work?
Yeah, so emotional eating, what is it? Because we basically eat because we have emotions, and food is connected to emotions always. So emotional eating means that people tend to use food for soothing very intense emotions or reward themselves after some stressful situations. And it is often connected with emotions that are so strong that we cannot handle them anymore. It is during times when there is lots of stress, there is grief, there is sadness. It can be various emotions as a result that our life is actually not as lived as we want it to live. And when we are losing the control over our imagination, how life should be, how we want it to be, then there are many different strategies to escape, because we basically try to find pleasure and escape suffering. And when our life is not how we envision it, then we really suffer. And we feel, especially when we don't have things under control, we feel incapable, we feel bad about ourselves. So then we tend to escape, and many people escape to alcohol, many people can escape to drugs even, but it can be sneaky way to escape to food that is very easily accessible everywhere and standardized by society and by our family and friends, and especially when we experience during childhood maybe like this reward behavior, like you get some chocolate when you do something nice or good, then it easily triggers our reward system in our brain, so we grab that food when we experience these things as adults.
Right, and food is almost inescapable because if we had a problem with alcohol, we could say, okay, well, I'm not drinking alcohol anymore. If we had a problem with sex, we could abstain for a while or try to relearn that, but you can't necessarily abstain from food.
Yeah, we need food. We need food to survive. That's the main reason why we have food. And then we need food to create some satisfaction. And then there is these emotions. So what we do is that we learn how to work with these emotions actually. And how you mentioned it, we cannot escape the food. That is the other part of it, because we often don't know actually how to manage the cravings that are very real because of hormonal disbalance. And oftentimes it is basically because of glucose spikes that we have, like this glucose roller coaster in our blood,
Okay.
and we are unaware of it. And then we may face the issue that we have like not so strong will and we cannot help ourselves, but it's real because it's physiology of the body.
Right. So there's the
So
emotional part of it, which you spoke to, but
yeah,
then there's also a
yeah,
physiological part. And when you say
yeah.
glucose, are we talking about sugar, that people are not balancing out their sugars correctly?
Yeah, it's basically it, because when we have something, like many people think that smoothie is healthy, right? But it is basically a mixture of, like, we think, okay, it's apple is healthy, banana is healthy.
Right.
And when you mixture it, and eat it just like, or drink it just without any other food, which like many women do because of, for instance, poor self-body image, and they skip the meals and take the smoothie because it's healthy. But then you have like a huge glucose spike because it
Okay.
go through the intestines to your blood very quickly, and it's actually not really healthy for you. First, you didn't eat proper meal, and
Right.
second, you have like this glucose spike. So then you have lacking of energy very soon, and you have these cravings, and then you might be thinking, okay, but I'm hungry, and then you are confused because you don't know actually where you stand at, and it might be confusing for your brain, because like many women are actually telling me, like, okay, I ate this and it's healthy, and now I have to exercise more and I feel tired and I feel fatigued and it's a lot of stress, and it's one little thing to another little thing, and then you are basically out of balance and it confuses you, right?
Right. Well, I feel like what you're speaking to, so there's dieting culture, right? I could speak to that. I was a teenager in the 90s, not to date myself, but there was high emphasis, especially in the United States, to focus on what a body looks like versus feeding a body for health or sustainability or even for athletics. So there's that kind of cultural pressure. And then there might be, at least in the United States, I don't think there's a strong food culture around like how much a person should eat and when and how. I know you're in the Czech Republic, but do you see that as well in other countries?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually even my story, because when I grew up, like my parents didn't have healthy food habits. They didn't know how to eat, what to eat. They were happy that we had some food, basically. It was the situation that we just had. So, for instance, for my mom was totally normal to skip a breakfast because she didn't like the food. And for my father's side, it was the opposite. For him, it was okay to take like donut for the morning and then have like normal food like as a lunch. But if you have like one donut in the morning for like every day, it's not really good, like you know. And then there are those like beliefs that we have from our parents, like I heard always that it's inevitable for me to be obese at one day because we have it in our genes. And that was really strong. And obviously, like I had many times in my life where I was like in these yo-yo effects. So I was keeping my habits and food, and then there were some struggles where I was skipping the meals and I was tired and it was hard. So I actually was gaining weight, and it was like that alarm in my brain thinking like, okay, so now it's the time and now it will be only worse. Or yeah, so I could go both directions. I could go like just accepting this is the way how it is because that's what I was taught to, or I could educate myself and like step outside of this like self-pity and just working through it and figuring out, okay, I'm obviously out of balance, so what will bring me, not only my body, but actually my emotions, which are like, for instance, in my case, like playing this huge part in this. So I was working like on these emotions, and I realized like, okay, I'm actually in charge of my emotions and I can work with them and I can really it changed whole story. But I know many people that are just in the first version of that story, that they believe that this is who they are and how it will be. And actually, like 36% of our health is only based on our personal choices, which is the diet choice, exercise choice, social circle choice, and just basic lifestyle and how we treat our emotions and mental state.
So you're saying the other 55% is genetic or no?
It is genetic, environmental, like toxins from outer space. It is like multiple factors, but 36% is only our individual choices. It's
That's huge.
only, yeah.
Especially because I think most people believe like, oh, because my parents look like this or because most of my relatives look like this, then I am doomed to repeat this scenario, right? So yeah, that's actually really like giving that responsibility back to the person is really empowering, I think. Because then you could say, okay, if this is 46% on me, then what can I do?
Absolutely. And the thing is that when you are in that space, you know, like it's not that you would like to keep yourself down and keep yourself in unhealthy space.
Right.
But many people, like if they don't hear this, or if they don't face some differences in other people, if they don't hear these success stories, they don't realize that it can be different. And so it's important to like hit that wall and see like, okay, I can really do something. I have the power within myself, and I can change this story. And like I can maybe even wake up and start to believe that miracle can happen because of neuroplasticity in our brain. So when we start to put our attention into miracles, we will start to see the miracles.
Right. What was the breaking point for you? Because you said it comes from your own story of your own struggles with eating and emotional eating. So was there a point that you remember that you're like, no, it doesn't have to be this way?
Yeah, there were many like points, because like I really struggled during my childhood. It was not really a happy and healthy place for me. So I think the biggest part for me was visiting other country. And when I moved to Sweden and I was living there and meeting totally different culture, totally different people with different lifestyles, and just the way how they treat each other, how the society was working, how was the family dynamics. That was really the hitting point where I saw like, okay, this is interesting. I haven't seen like this before in my family.
What would be the comparison for us that don't know? What's the difference for you? What was the big culture shock between the Czech Republic and Sweden?
For me, it was really like almost, how to say, there was a huge emphasis on family, and the family is the priority, and the family dynamic is important. Taking care of the kids is important, and that was like the first time when I saw that the family is really such a huge unit. Because I was growing up in like family that like my parents were separated, and I was basically just escaping to school to be like in a safe place, but then I was bullied there, so I was escaping to job to find another safe place. So I was really like taken out of the family, and I basically didn't know how family looks like and how to build, like nice connections between people. So I had to learn this step by step. And when I was facing this Swedish environment, like I was doing just a job on myself. Like I was, like first I found their amazing yoga studio. So I was like going there like basically every day to do yoga and like get in touch with myself and understand and accept all the emotions and everything that opened up. It was like you have egg with strong shell, and now you have like crack, in it. So all the yolk and everything were just like
right. You have to piece yourself back. You're Humpty Dumpty, putting yourself back together again.
Yeah. So that was like really, really nice place where I found it like safe space to work through it, and then. It went well with practice of acceptance. It is basically a technique where you work with your mind and self-language. So everything that you are telling yourself, like, all those generalizations, like no one loves me, or my parents didn't love me, or like stuff like that. So you basically tell it to out loud as many times as you need until you are fine with it. It doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that it is real, but it was like space where I could work with that emotion that I simply had in me, and it was valid. And I didn't want to transfer it on any other person that I meet, So this is something that I think is really important, to like accept this emotion and then create shift actually. And that shift happened then with many other techniques. So I was working in like some hypnotherapies, regression therapies, autogenic training, shamanistic practices, until coaching now.
Wow.
And this is what I really love, because with coaching it is like every day, like quick revision where you are, what you want, and you can work through it. So I actually love the connection, both like the mindfulness and being in sync with your body and minds and emotions, and then like really focusing what you want to create in your life. So you can, like I mentioned, you can focus your brain to these things and welcome it more into your life.
And be able to accept more in your life, right? When you were in that process, so you're getting to Sweden, you're a broken egg, and you're putting yourself back together. And I'd love to know what your relationship with food was during that time. How did it start to shift? Was there a moment where you're like, okay, now this is different?
Yeah, I think it was up and down. Like it was really intense time because I was working in university. I was in a lot of stress, and there was like, when you live in different country, you struggle really with many different things, with with even like just the situation where to live, how to find new place when your contract is finished, and especially in Sweden, this was like hard. So there were times where I was really paying attention to food, and it was like nice, but since I actually restrict myself in childhood from food, I didn't know what amount is good for me, and I was still like skipping meals. And I was experimenting a lot, so I was trying like this veganism. But then when I was going vegan, I was really weak. So this was not working for me, and I put a lot of effort, and I still felt so weak. So it seems that it didn't go well with my lifestyle that I had actually. Then there was this smoothie period, because
I think everybody did the smoothie thing and the juicing thing.
Yeah, especially when you are yogi and you go to the yoga studio, and it's like everyone is going there with the smoothie or kombucha, and I was thinking like, okay, so likely this is healthy, and I was still like getting more weight, and I was like not understanding, because I was thinking like, this is nothing that should create such a huge difference, but it did in me, because I had these cravings and I was stressed, and so there was this hormonal response and everything. And then after this period went down, then I was learning more about what to eat, how to eat, and what really helped me was this journaling and noticing what I do eat. So I felt that I have more or less some view, and again I paid attention to it. So then it was easier. Yeah, and then it was easier to keep some structure and plan a bit more. So I will not skip the meals, and I will, take care of myself. And actually, what really was happening was that when I paid attention and I was mindful around the food, then my mood was better, and I was like really much more resilient to all the emotional things that were happening. So it is both ways. So sometimes when we are really down with our emotions, we tend to, like, some people go for this reward-seeking food, but some people stop to eat at all.
Right.
And that's the point where you stop to eat at all. You have no energy, nourishment to deal with these strong emotions. So it's good to take little steps that will actually help you to be a bit better.
I'm glad you brought up the not eating and the eating, because both are considered, I'm assuming you say that both are emotional eating, right? Because there are people that go towards food and that's comforting, and then there's others that skip food completely. Like I could speak for, like, we have both of that in my house. My partner is an eater when he's emotionally upset, and I won't eat. And both versions cause us to be our worst selves, because I spiral into anxiety because I have no food, there's no energy, my body's all out of whack, and it's doing its best to keep me up and awake. And for him, it causes him to get more down, sleepy, wanting to rest, more internal. So neither one, I imagine, is great for anyone.
Yeah, so if you go for food, and if you are on that side that you tend to overeat, I would suggest to stop for a moment, breathe, and just write down, like, what do you feel, how do you feel, and be more mindful around it. And first of all, notice, like, whether you are really hungry or whether you are just angry or upset. And so that would be the first step. And if you are on the other side and you skip the meals, obviously this really is not helping our mindset. So I would suggest, like, little by little, be like prepared that this is your version, and have some food that is actually healthy and can comfort you. So be more like prepared. Really nice thing that I wish I knew at the time when I was in Sweden was to talk about probiotics and how they are affecting our mood, actually. And I read really interesting manuscripts where they took gut microbiome from patients who suffered from schizophrenia, and they take this microbiome into a healthy mice gut, and these mice, they start to have schizophrenic symptoms.
Wow.
Symptoms of schizophrenia, yeah. So if only this was happening in this one experiment, so I would really take care of the gut. And you know, like, it is also helping with people who has ADHD. So only this is really supporting our cognitive function. So there are actually tests that you can check your gut health. So that is interesting to know. And
does it work? Like, I know a lot of our listeners are parents or work with children. Is it the same, or do you know of studies that also the probiotics might help with ADHD in children, because we have such a growth in that area here?
Absolutely, absolutely. My friend, she has a kid with ADHD, and she really noticed that when they included more kimchi and kefir into diet, like, he got really better. So I know that not everyone loves and is fan of kimchi, but still you can. Yeah, good for you, good for you. I am not really fan of kimchi, but I like cabbage. But maybe not every single day.
No, probably not.
So there are many ways. Tempeh, kefir, beans, or you can just add probiotics. You know,
like a supplement.
In supplement. Yeah. Yeah, so this is one thing that I wish I knew at that time, and I didn't pay attention to it, even though my friends taught me to drink kombucha, but again, there was a lot of sugar as well. So, yeah.
That's really fascinating. And we've spoken about how when you give some of your clients this task of keeping track of what they're eating, and then they come to you. I remember this one story you told me, that then they come to you and you're like, but I'm always hungry, and look, this is all I'm eating correctly. And then you take a look at that log and you're like, well, you're not actually eating enough. You're eating healthy, or what you think is healthy, but over the course of a day, it might not be enough for you. Can you speak to that? Is that what you find in most clients?
So I work mainly with these emotions. So first step, we go through this diary, not diary, but journal about the food. And that's the thing that many people, like most of the people, really struggle with the cravings. But when we have like these huge glucose spikes, which can be caused, as I mentioned, with the smoothie or with wrong breakfast, the breakfast is really important in this. So if you start breakfast with this huge glucose spike, then you really have these cravings because you you have like this hormonal disbalance. There is more leptin that is actually like blocking you to stop eat, and then you tend to overeat. So like, I'm not sure in percentage, but most of the overeaters, it's only because of this. So what we do first, this is the easiest thing to do. The first step is to balance the glucose spikes. So for instance, if you can choose what to eat first, you eat first like vegetables, then you eat carbs, for instance. So if you have pasta with something green, you eat the green first and pasta second. So it actually helps you, the glucose spike, like really lower a little bit. And with this, actually, you have much more energy. And when you have much more energy, then it's easier to add next steps. And also, like many people, like it's interesting how they start day. So many people start with coffee as a first thing that they take to their body. So yeah. Yeah, and what I really suggest to do is to start actually with water and notice just like this little change is changing really how you feel in the morning. And you can actually add some affirmation or some like mindful practice to it. So when you drink the water, you can like really feel that the water is cup of love, and you can, drink that love inside, and it really set totally different day setting for you. So only by this, then you can play with herbs. So there are many things that we add step by step, and this helps overall the health, and then it's easier to work more deeply with the emotions and mental patterns.
And you mentioned a couple times about the importance of breakfast. For you, if you're saying like vegetables first, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not thinking vegetables. I'm thinking like bagel, So what for you would be the quintessential breakfast in order to set yourself up for a good day?
Yeah, I'm a huge lover of sweet. Yeah, so I love sweet breakfast as well. So for me, it is either like if I want to have something sweet, so first I take just some vegetable and then I take something sweet. So it's not this huge glucose spike and I'm satisfied. Or I can, like I am a huge fan of pancakes and I love them totally. But still you can prepare like better version of them. So you can figure out like what the recipe is. So for me, it is with what is the English word for it? Sweet cottage, with
cheese?
Blueberries. Yeah, cheese. Yeah, with blueberries, and this is totally satisfying me. But I had to even like go there step by step with this water, starting first. Then I use actually amalaki, which is really nice fruit, and it stabilizes the blood sugar. And it is really helping with the cravings. I really love it. And
what is it, amalaki?
Amalaki, it is Indian fruit. So it is, you can find the fruit, or you can find like the dried powder that you put into water and drink it. And it has actually really interesting taste. It's not sweet, it's not sour, it's not bitter. It's something like interesting, but I really like it. I really like it, and it's at like the plate. My palate is different now.
Okay.
So even now, if I would like to buy chocolate, I would not eat it. When I would like to try something, like it happened to me on conference, there were these beautiful cupcakes, and my eyes were just eating, and I'm thinking like, okay, but food should be emotional, and I'm just here for one time, so there is no point. Why should I try? And I was thinking, my emotions are good. I'm in good mood. There is no compensation, so why not?
Right.
So I went for it, and I didn't like it at all. It was just like a bowl of sugar. And I was actually happy that I tried, and I saw the difference.
Right, because it isn't out of habit anymore. When you've already gained that awareness, so you're saying, I'm going to try this, and I know my emotional state right now. And then you don't just like shovel it in your mouth and swallow
Absolutely,
it down because it's something you do. You actually took the time to be like, do I even like this? Okay, maybe not.
Absolutely. That is the difference, because like if you go there to the table because you are so stressed and you want just to soothe yourself, that's a different story, right? So step by step. So it would be overwhelming if you just try to implement everything at once and then work like deeply with the emotions and mental state, and it can be too much. So we just do step by step, little by little. So maybe just do water in the morning, and think more about arranging breakfast. So it's still pleasurable, because it should be still pleasurable. It still should be like joyful to eat and to have something that you really like. It shouldn't be. That's the reason why people fail when they go to nutritionists, because they got that meal plan, and they maybe even don't like it so much, and then the emotions that they have when they prepare the meal is negative. Then they follow strictly everything, and then when the program is finished, then they start to be in the same old pattern because they did not enjoy the process. So what I really would love people to know and do is to enjoy process and find way how they can find more joy in meal prep. Do it with family, find friends who support you, so you switch the recipes. This is wonderful. Like I had my friend and we are talking about like, and this food, have you tried this? And it's African chicken, and you actually put cacao in it. And I was just like, oh, chicken and cacao, this sounds like weird. And like stuff like this, and it is fun, it is joy, and you can just follow the process, so it's sustainable for you. It's lifestyle that you actually want in your life, and you don't do it just because you are unhealthy or you have some body image that is not according to your imagination, but you can actually be in tune with yourself and go more with the flow.
Right. Instead of just restricting things and having to, like, I don't know, white knuckle it through. I see that a lot, especially in our culture here. And then there's this big debate here, especially, or at least online, between the people are like, alcohol is fine, especially when it's super healthy, or like never alcohol, never all the time. Where do you fall in that spectrum?
So alcohol for me personally is no, because I'm really sensitive person, and I know that it doesn't make me feel good, and I'm in tune with my body. So I feel like I don't feel good with my body. I feel just like falling asleep, and then I have like, even if it's just one glass of wine, like next day I feel like so terrible. So I don't see purpose to do this for myself.
Do you feel that happened because of yoga? Because I always joke, like, yoga is the worst. It ruined my life because I can't drink anymore. I can't go to sleep late. Were you always like, couldn't drink wine, or was it having something to do with this process?
I think it's metabolic issue for me, because it was always like this. And yeah, it's not good for me. Not good for me.
At least you have that
But
awareness. I'm sure there's people that know it's not good for them and they're still like, well, and still drinking.
yeah, then there is question why, and whether they do it just because of the others, because they are like so-called, if we want to label them, like people pleasers, and they want to be part of group and be cool and connect with others, which I'm sure you can do many other ways. And with me, it's like I still enjoy being around people who take a glass of wine, I just take water or juice and I still have like really meaningful and valuable conversations with them. So I know what's good for me, and if they feel like really that now it's the day and it's pleasure for them to just take, one nice glass of red wine, I don't have problem with it. If it's just like, it's the same like I take 100% chocolate and I want to enjoy it. It is nice for me, and I know that it's just for the pleasure, and I'm totally fine with it. If I would take that chocolate because I feel sad, then I would be on alert. If I would go for the chocolate because I'm stressed and I don't find myself at a peaceful state of mind, then I would be on alert for myself. So that is something, the border that I would distinguish, because when you grab it in this emotional state, then it's easy to fall down more deep into this out of control pattern. And if you repeat something 3 times, it starts to be habit.
Yeah. It's even,
So,
yeah, and then that habitual pattern, I feel like, and it's reinforced by society, obviously, but that like on Friday, you're done with work, you put in your time, and now it's like wine time, right? And then everybody's like, the bars are flooded. Like that's what people are habituated to be doing. Or even if they're going home, it's like, oh, now's the time that I get to relax after work and drink my wine or my beer or whatever and eat dinner and relax. I think there's a re-circuitry that has to happen to like be able to break that habit.
yeah, for me, what you described, it feels like this dopamine release. It's still like that reward seeking behavior. So I would try to find out, like, first, does it really make me feel good? Like, is it really good for my body? This is really what I want to enjoy? Or is it just that I found this as a reward and I don't see any other option? How can I reward myself? So I would question actually, like, what kind of situations brings me this reward? Like for me, it was like that spark in the childhood when I was visiting my grandmother and great grandmother, and we had like these Sundays where me and my great grandmother were going to a cafeteria and have some snack, and it was time only me and her, and I loved it. So for me, this was like to go to cafeteria was like that celebration time and reward. So even when my great grandmother and grandmother passed away, I still like think about them. But I can actually think about them in many other places, and I can still keep that connection and be like feel close to them, and reward myself by this little treatment and imagination. Because even when we just imagine these things, our brains start to release the dopamine. So, for instance, in your case, in what you mentioned, like if, for instance, for these kind of people, can be reward to go for some holiday, and it is still like so many months ahead, you can start to plan it actually, because that planning process is something that is already rewarding, and you already start to be in joyful state, creative state, and then you actually come up with many other options that you didn't see before, right?
I also feel like it's what you're describing is like a lack of imagination, right? we tend to think we grow up to be adults and then we do the job and we come home from the job and we relax from the job by like either eating or drinking and then start that cycle all over again. I think we lose some creativity and imagination there to say like, what other things can bring me joy? Like, what else can I do that's not just laying on the couch, like inhaling Netflix and taking back a bottle? You know, I think that's why I use yoga as an example of ruining my life, is because it allowed me to find pleasure outside of what society was telling me is pleasurable, which at least here is like partying your face off after you get off from work, right? So I think that what you're speaking to is it could be fun. It could be like an exploration, like what brings me joy that's not this.
Yeah, exactly. I loved it. And it's also like with yoga and any other exercise, like you tend to bring it as a part of routine, and then it starts to be more like you have to do this ashtanga for every Monday, and if you skip, then you fail, and that's also like part of this. Like it should be still joy, and if you like, yes, discipline is important, and we practice it, but still we can practice it with joy, and our brain needs variability as well. So when you have this practice, to keep it really sustainable and not to be annoyed by it after some time, you need some changes, and that's why, like, for me, it was important to switch different practices. So I tried yin yoga and ashtanga and hot yoga and many. Like, I think every type of yoga except beer yoga. but I think this is important to realize, like, okay, what brings me variability, and still if you practice one type of yoga, you can like maybe add something new to it or do it something different, like different way. So it challenges your brain a bit and brings more variability. And maybe play with meditations, different types of meditations as well. So there are many ways, but when we are in this fight or flight mode, we are still scanning our environment, like what's wrong here, and this is our like default system of the brain to still scanning whether we are safe, right? So then yoga is amazing practice to come back to that creative state of mind, like you mentioned. So from that place, you can find more examples of what we were talking about, like what brings me more joy at this moment, what will make me happy now, what can I do differently tomorrow, where can I put my attention to, focus to, how can I engage more with my family, you know, what have we learned together this day.
Yeah, with that mindset, it sounds like a beautiful adventure instead of
journey.
a journey instead of a checklist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for listeners that know they have gained an awareness around that they want to better their relationship with food, what is one thing they can do after listening to this podcast to kind of bring more awareness to that?
Bring more awareness to food. I would start with that journaling and ask yourself, what can I add to my diet that is nourishing me, and I really will like it.
Perfect.
I would start with that.
I think that's enough. And if they felt that they needed support in this journey, where can they find you or find out more about you?
Absolutely. So you can reach out to me on my web pages, which is my name, surname.com, michaelaczerneková.com.
We'll have that in the show notes.
Thanks. You can find me on Instagram as well, Dr. Michaela Coach. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok, so you can reach out there.
You're everywhere. They will find you, and we'll have all
you
of
will
those
find
links.
me. Yeah, and feel free to book a call, so we can dig more deep into your personal thing that you struggle with and see where to move from that. So.
Well, thank you. I think this work is profoundly important. I hope folks will reach out to you. I want to thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with us, and
thank you so
for
much,
taking us on this journey.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Really, I'm happy to meet you.
You too. I'll see you soon.